Welcome to Into the Woods, a journey with the tarot. Here, we wander together into the woods to explore ourselves, the world around us, and the mysteries and joys of life through the tarot. I'm your host, Mari, a professional tarot reader and a musician. Grab your deck, and off we go. Hi everyone, welcome back to Into the Woods. Today we're going to talk about the relationship between tarot and astrology. Astrology can definitely bring in some more context, some more richness into our tarot interpretations, so I thought it would be fun to talk about that today. I have to admit that of all the mystical arts, it's taken me the longest to get into astrology. I'm like really only recently getting into it. I was a super early student of meditation and yoga, I don't know, maybe 15 years old, 16 years old. And I mean like consistently for my whole life. I've been using oracle cards forever, now tarot, but I don't know, astrology, it's been like a challenge to get into it for me. I think I've always just been drawn to things that I feel like I could more directly experience myself. And the stars and the cosmos just seem so distant and unrelatable. And then, of course, shallow pop astrology has always been a huge turnoff for me. But even with astrologers that I really respect and think they have a lot of integrity, I have struggled to understand what use the information is. So, for example, an astrology update for the month ahead, it typically gives you a lot of information on what could be happening or what the energy may feel like. But then, what do I do with that information? Is it just inevitable and destined to be that way? Or is it supposed to make me plan or behave differently? And what about when I don't really feel like I resonate with what the astrologer indicated it would feel like? I don't know. And also it just feels overwhelming. There's always a ton of astrology happening every month. So it's impossible to even remember what's happening when. So that being said, I have finally come around. In part because I really resonate with the work and teachings of an astrologer named Christina Farella. Her approach is to use astrology as yet another means of self-reflection and connection with divine guidance, and is honestly quite similar to the way I use tarot, so it makes a lot of sense that I'd be drawn to her work. She's super academic about mythology. She knows so much. So she gave me a reading over a year ago. It was one of only 2 astrology readings I've ever had. And she just really walked me through the chart. I was looking at it with her. It was very clear. She sort of empowered me to understand how she was reading it and what things meant. I learned a lot in just 1 hour. A reading I had had before that, I was just on the phone with the astrologer, I think. And she was just kind of telling me stuff about the chart that I wasn't really understanding and was just supposed to sort of take it at face value. It was less of a conversation. I remember at the time she told me that I was for sure going to have kids. And at the time I was like, I don't think I am going to have kids. She was right. I did end up having kids. But I mean, there was just kind of no openness for interpretation or discussion. And it was kind of more of a novel experience and not really that life-changing or, cause for reflection or anything. So anyway, loved my reading with Christina. I then recently finished taking her 10-week class with my mom, adorable. Took us through the mythology of astrology, super fun and useful. And I was really struck between the similarities in astrology and tarot. I really get why these 2 divinatory arts are intertwined and why A.E. Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith, the creators of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck of the Golden Dawn, why they brought in astrological associations to the tarot, or really highlighted them in their version of the deck. I don't know if this is just the rebel in me who struggles with authority figures, but once again, I find these tools so much more useful and empowering when I can learn them myself or when I'm sort of taught them. So back to my example of my 2 different readings, Christina's was so much more useful because I felt like I was understanding the process and the meaning and the why versus just somebody interpreting for me and just telling me, how it is. Again, my feeling was what am I supposed to do with this information? So I do think there's value in feeling seen by someone or like validating experience through astrology, which, an astrologer can definitely do with you just by kind of understanding you through your chart. But once the tool is in your own hands or my own hands, I can then use it as a mirror for myself and for others. And working with, an astrologer as sort of an outside person helping you interpret, it just feels more complete, the process. So I think that's why I'm always drawn to teaching and I'm so motivated to like actually discuss these things, like creating this podcast instead of just offering tarot readings or astrology readings. I do think sometime in the future, I might develop some tarot courses or workshops, which is really exciting, but I'm very about like empowering other people because that's how I like to work with things. All that to say, I think astrology is yet another system that is elegant, rich, and full of symbolic meaning. That is, of course, an amazing tool or area of study on its own, but is also a great companion to tarot. Without further ado, here are 3 ways that you can incorporate astrology into your tarot readings. Number 1, understand the astrological symbols that are present in the cards, in whatever deck you're working with. So if we're talking about the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, there are numerous overt references to astrology that we can study to understand those cards better. For example, the symbol of Venus is on the Empress card. On the Wheel of Fortune card, there are the 4 figures in the corners of the cards that refer to the 4 fixed astrology signs and all kinds of stuff. So be on the lookout for the following astrological references. Number 1 would be astrological glyphs. What is a glyph? It's just the simple symbol that is used to represent the zodiac sign or the planet. Like the sign for Venus, a lot of us are familiar with. It's the circle with the cross beneath it, or of course, Mars, which is the circle and the diagonal arrow coming out from it. This doesn't appear a ton in Rider-Waite-Smith, but I do have other decks where it appears, more often if they're pulling in more astrology symbols. So just recognizing those glyphs and then making the connection, oh, that's a reference to Venus. And then playing around with associations with Venus with the card. Next, look for animals, creatures, etc., referring to the actual zodiac signs. So some examples of these are the lions on the Queen of Wands, which refer to Leo. The rams on the Emperor refers to Aries. The 2 human figures on the Lover's card or the 2 of Cups may be a reference for Gemini. Any card with scales on it, like Justice or the 6 of Pentacles, may refer to Libra. And so you can just pull in the associations with the astrological sign into the meaning of the card and kind of weave it in some beautiful way. And then also be looking out for just elements. This is so obvious with the tarot because it's like based off of elements. But basically, if you're working with the suits and you have a Wands card, you can think of the fire signs. Just in general, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, and the types of traits that those fire signs all share. And then in the major arcana, we may just see different elements in there, right? Fire, water, and using that imagery to connect to different zodiac signs. Just be on the lookout for references to astrology as symbols in the deck. Identifying it in the card, maybe doing a little bit of research, reading, Googling, and learning how it creates a relationship with whatever card we're looking at. All right, number 2. Assigning astrological signs and planets to the major arcana. So if you've been using tarot for a while, you may know its background and connection to the Golden Dawn. If not, then it's kind of a fun part of tarot history to know. So back in the late 1800s, there was an occult society called the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. It was based in London. They were dedicated to the study of the occult and ceremonial magic, drawing from Hermeticism, Kabbalah, alchemy, and of course, tarot. The creators of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, Arthur Edward Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith, were both members of this society. The Golden Dawn assigned each of the 22 major arcana to one of the zodiac signs, the 7 traditional planets, or one of the elements. So what does this look like? Okay, the first 4 cards in the major arcana, the Fool is associated with air. The Magician is associated with Mercury. The High Priestess is associated with the moon, of course. The Empress is associated with Venus. So sometimes there is a really obvious astrological symbol on the card, like that Venus sign on the Empress, but sometimes there isn't. If you're not sure, you can totally just Google this and find the astrological association and use it to deepen your knowledge of the card. So let's look at an example, and I'm going to pick one that isn't super on the nose. Okay, so let's look at the Lovers card. And the astrological association noted by the Golden Dawn is Gemini. Yes, on the Lovers card, we do have the two naked figures, which is very Gemini. But if we are thinking surface level about the Lovers, we may think the obvious connection would be Venus. But no, it's Gemini. So right away, we know there's more to this card than its name might suggest. Gemini does not rule romantic relationships, but rather the intellect. It has to do with communication, wit, writing, collecting knowledge, childhood or early learning, learning to think for yourself, changing your mind a lot. It has to do with duality and the blending of masculine and feminine archetypes within us. So if we're thinking about these things in relation to the Lovers card, I think it really reinforces a lot of what I talked about in episode 7, which was all about the Lovers, that it's not really a card about romance, but rather how we learn through our relationships with other people or experiences and how they act as a mirror for us to better understand ourselves and our values. It is the process of taking ownership of those choices we make in life. And the fact that it's called the Lovers can be a little deceiving, but many of us do experience this kind of process of seeing ourselves through somebody else, most often in our closest relationships or our partnership. And there is a lot of vulnerability required. And usually we only kind of put forth that vulnerability in our closest relationships, or perhaps our romantic relationship. So it could be a fun exercise to just go through all of the major arcana, check out the astrological associations, and see if you can make sense of that connection. Number 3, use astrological associations with the pip cards. To do this, we're going to have to learn a little bit more about astrology. So we have 12 signs in the zodiac in astrology, and each season of the year goes through 3 zodiac signs. So for example, summer, we have Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. Where a zodiac sign sits in its season determines its quality. So the 3 qualities are cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Cardinal signs are the zodiac signs that begin their season. So if summer is Cancer, Leo, Virgo in that order, the cardinal sign is Cancer. The fixed sign is the one in the middle, so that would be Leo, and the mutable sign is Virgo, and it would be that same pattern for every season of the year. So with the pip cards, which is our cards numbered 1 through 10 in the suits, the ace is thought to hold all the zodiac signs of that element. For example, Ace of Cups would encompass Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, all of the traits. But from there, we take the cards in groups of 3. So cards numbered 2, 3, and 4 belong to the cardinal sign of that element. So 2 of Wands would be cardinal fire, which is Aries. Aries is the cardinal fire sign. So then we can bring in the traits and mythologies of Aries to cards 2, 3, and 4 of the Wands suit. For 5, 6, and 7, it would be the fixed signs. So again, if we're looking at the 5, 6, and 7 of Wands, that's going to be Leo. Leo is the fixed fire sign. 8, 9, and 10 are going to correlate with the mutable signs. For Wands, that would be Sagittarius. So let's pick a random pip card and work with this. The first one I see here is the 9 of Cups. So starting with the element, Cups is water. And then we're going to pick the quality. So 9s are mutable because 8, 9, and 10, we look at the mutable water sign. So which zodiac sign is mutable water? You can totally Google this, but it's Pisces. So let's tie that to the 9 of Cups. In the 9 of Cups, we see someone sitting with their arms crossed, with a very pleased expression on their face, with 9 full cups displayed on a table behind them. It is often connected to personal satisfaction, a sense of accomplishment, having filled your own cups, being self-sufficient, emotionally satisfied. It can also be just enjoying the simple things in life. Now, Pisces is the dreamer, represented by the fish. Pisces is thought to be very dreamy, mystical, unconditionally loving, poetic, and artistic. It's the final sign in the zodiac, representing a sort of wholeness and completion of a cycle, which very much aligns with the number 9 in tarot. Pisces loves to escape into imagination and dreams, and that is something I can really see in this card. It's like this character has built their own little world of cups. They can be happy in their own little bubble of happiness or their own world they've created, even if everything outside of that is going to hell. That's just what came up for me this time around, thinking about Pisces and what I'm seeing in the 9. But honestly, there's so much to draw from. So I just wanted to go through that as an example of how you might start to work with that connection of astrology and a tarot card. I know I said I was going to give 3 things, but here's a little bonus. If a court card comes up and you are exploring who it represents, you can consider people's astrological signs if you know it. Maybe that King of Swords is that hot, weird Aquarius you went on a date with, or the Queen of Pentacles is your Taurus sister. Shout out to my Taurus sister. So that's a fun experiment to try. I had a reading at a party recently and the Knight of Cups came up and we were like, it's my husband. He's a Cancer. So that can be a fun thing to incorporate, if you think of it at the time. So a pro tip, if you're interested in working with astrology and tarot together, is to just get a deck that includes the astrological associations in the guidebook or maybe directly on the cards. So I have 2 decks that do this, and one is the Tarot of the Witch's Garden. The other is called the Zodiac Tarot. I'm sure there are others as well. So in the Zodiac Tarot, for instance, it has a lot of extra astrological symbols on the cards, those glyphs like I was talking about. And then in the guidebook, it tells you the astrological associations in writing for every card. So super helpful in getting to know that a little bit better and not have to do some extra Googling and all that. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the connection between astrology and tarot. I think it's such a fun way to just blow the world up even bigger in tarot, having lots more mythology and symbolism that we can pull from. It's so much fun. So highly recommend dipping your toe in the waters there. Please send me a message if you have any questions about anything I talked about today. You can follow me on Instagram at Mari of the Woods. Mari is spelled Mari. And I am available for tarot readings. I just revamped my website a little bit, so now you can actually schedule and pay for the readings online through my website, which is mariofthewoods.com. Please continue to share this podcast with your friends and your family who are into mystical shit like we are. And until next time, have an amazing week. Happy wandering.